Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. The Burgundy Zone is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more at www.listofrederick.com. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Hall. And we are joined by special guest, NFL Draft Analyst for PFN 365, Mr. Ian Cummings. How are you doing on this beautiful Thursday evening, Ian?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Just, it's the life of a draft analyst. Just watching tape, writing up guys, rinse, repeat every day. We got the Senior Bowl coming up, so I'm excited about that. But it's really repetitive. But, I'm a lot more confident about this year's class. When you dig into it, from May to February, it's a lot of time to get over guys. So it's a really interesting class. Really excited to dive in.
Yeah, exciting is a way to say it because the Twitter sphere has gone crazy over this draft, especially here in Washington. So we can't go any further without talking about the quarterback position that has everyone flipping out around here. Biggest question that I have is, what do you see at a Kenny Pickett? A lot of people like to bring up the gloves, the hand size, and everything. What have you seen from Kenny Pickett? Do you think that he is the best equipped quarterback at the moment to be able to make the next step?
Yeah, so I'll start it off with there are reasons that he's an outlier. And I've talked with some WFT guys who bring up really good points about him, not really producing at a high level until his final season. That's certainly something to take into account. You usually don't see guys who translate when that happens. It's kind of a rare thing. But then the hand size, too. I think he's going to measure in with like 8 1/4 inch hands, which is pretty small. You go back to all the quarterbacks that have succeeded in the NFL and, who hasn't. I think the lowest that it goes is like a little bit below 9, right? So usually 9 is the threshold. I remember when Joe Burrow came out, everyone made a fuss about his 9-inch hands. Now Pickett's is almost a full inch smaller. It's going to cause a bit of, it's going to cause some fury, So it's going to be interesting to see, though. I was looking at his college tape, and you want to look at bad weather games like North Carolina this past year. I didn't think it was too much of an issue with him throwing the football. I still think he got good spin on it. So I think the main issue you need to look at how he handles NFL footballs, because those balls tend to run a little bit bigger than college footballs. So if he can grip those, then he's got a shot, right? But we'll see that at the Senior Bowl, at the NFL Combine, in throwing drills. We'll see if he can handle that. That'll be the first big test for him. But, what I like to do when we don't have the answer to that question, I don't want to just assume that it's going to preclude him from playing football. I want to look at the player and what does the player provide. So outliers aside, does this guy translate on tape? And me personally, I've been a fan of the upside since 2020. I thought he could be a future starter potentially. And then, he had a lot to work on, but he did it. He went through the offseason, he worked on his mechanics, and he came back a different quarterback. I love his mechanics. I think he has a really nice base in the pocket. But then more than that, when he goes off script, off platform, it can be hard for guys. They can be more volatile. But Kenny Pickett, he keeps his shoulders level. He can get that hip torque on the run, which I really like to see. Doesn't have an elite arm, but can at least throw from different angles and has the elasticity to layer it into tight windows. So I like to see that. He's a tough competitor. He knows how to manipulate safeties with his eyes. He's a pretty good processor, which, with his experience being a 4-year starter, you'd want to see that. So I think he has the mental capacity to be an NFL starter. And then I think he has the physical traits too. You look at his athleticism. Everyone was like, throwing up their arms at the fake slide, right? But it takes a crazy amount of, coordination and flexibility to pull that off. And he's actually a pretty good athlete in space. He's pretty agile in the pocket. Not an elite athlete, I'm not going to say he's like Kyler or anything, but definitely above average, definitely good. And I think he's got a good enough arm too. So he's in the running for my QB1 right now. I haven't set it in stone yet, but I think if you're going to take a swing on someone in this class, if the hand size checks out, I think Kenny Pickett's the guy.
Yeah, and sticking with the Senior Bowl quarterbacks, Mel Kiper released his mock draft 1.0 this week, and he had Malik Willis getting taken at number 11 by the Washington football team. I guess they'll be Washington X team come the draft time. But what are some things that Malik Willis does well, and what does he do that translates to the NFL to today's game?
Yeah, Willis is an interesting one because I think it's pretty easy to say that, he has the highest ceiling, right? If he reaches his full potential, he'll get the physical traits. Definitely that explosive, agile athlete in the pocket can create some crazy plays just by his athleticism alone. And then he's got a rocket arm, too. He can push it downfield into tight windows, outside the numbers. Love to see that from the guy. But then you look at the lower moments, the need for refinement. And it's definitely, I want to preface by saying this. I don't think the Liberty system and the offense, and the supporting cast helped him out at all. He was running for his life a lot behind that offensive line. There were some plays where the route concepts really don't play well with one another, and there's really no one getting open downfield. And then at that point, you have to create for yourself. So I think the offense and the supporting cast naturally created a little bit of the volatility. Now, Malik Willis, once you get scrambling, it just becomes more volatile and more chaotic, and that can play out of your hands sometimes. So there was a little bit of it's a double-edged sword for Malik Willis. He works himself into a corner sometimes, but he can make some crazy plays too. So I think if you put him in a better situation, which I think Washington would be a better situation for him, there's a good chance that he starts to hit the ground running. But there is a lot to work on because being in that situation at Liberty, it has eroded at some of the growth that you'd see in some departments. I don't think he's great at manipulating safeties. His eyes tend to stick to targets sometimes, and he's not super consistent going through his progressions, but the upside is there. And you like to think if I can insert him into a better situation, it could facilitate the necessary growth. I think he's got the head on his shoulders. I think he's shown he can process. It's just being in that situation and being so skittish in the pocket because your offensive line can't hold blocks. It's gonna preclude you from taking the necessary reps that you need to get that muscle memory down from that standpoint. So there's a lot to work on with Malik Willis, but I love the upside. And, I think he's going to interview really well at the Senior Bowl. I think he's going to win over some guys with his character. He's definitely a great leader. With Washington, I've never loved the fit just because I do think it's probably ideal to have a bridge guy. And of course, you could use Taylor Heineke as the bridge guy for Malik Willis. I think that's totally possible. But I'm not sure how much you want to see Taylor Heineke more after this year, right? So, maybe you want a guy who can hit the ground running with a roster that's close to competing, right? Like you don't want to waste too much time, especially with Ron Rivera after this year and the year before that. Maybe the seat's getting a little hotter if you're waiting too long. So, it's a tough situation to be in, but I do like the upside he provides. If you're confident that you can put him in a situation where he can have a little bit more time to, be creative, have a little bit more time to read the field and, kind of ease his way in and kind of, facilitate that growth in year one, then I would take a leap on Malik Willis. But, if you don't think your situation is good enough for him, maybe it's a little bit more hairy, maybe go with a higher floor guy. But, I do think Malik Willis has the highest ceiling. It's just the floor. If you can't incubate his growth, then you're talking about maybe a situation where he never can reach his full potential because you're not supporting him the right way.
Yeah, and all of my rookie quarterback fanatics out there, cover your ears for this one. Ian, let's just say if the Washington didn't go for a quarterback at 11, what players in particular would be worth that 11th overall pick to take over one of these quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's one that we don't really hear because, like you said, the quarterback frenzy has kind of taken over. And if I'm Washington, I'd want to do my due diligence on the quarterbacks first because, as much as people like to say the class isn't great, and I don't like to use the word bad, but there is talent there, and Washington has avoided taking a swing for so long. I think you have to take a swing and see what it gets you. But, let's say they don't go quarterback, or let's say they get a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. It's weird bringing up any scenarios because there's always someone who doesn't like that scenario, right? So you can't really please everyone, but let's just, hypothetically, let's say they stick with Taylor Heineke or get a veteran. I do think that there are a few options at number 11. I do think that corner could be one of them. Could use an upgrade there, and this is a great corner class to get a guy. Andrew Booth is my CB1, but you got Derek Stingley too, who could maybe fall to 11 with that foot injury that he suffered, and he'd be a very good player. I think having the feet first mentality and press, using his feet to kind of match guys, and he's got the fluidity, the explosiveness, and then the ball skills. We've all seen his ability to make a play on the ball. It's pretty impressive, right? Yeah. So Derek Stingley, if he falls there, maybe Ahmad Gardner. He's another really fun player. Safety, if Kyle Hamilton drops, and he's my number 2 overall prospect, and he's really close. He's right there with Kayvon Thibodeau. But here's the thing, man, safeties usually don't go very high. I mean, Derwin James went like number 17 for whatever reason. NFL teams don't seem to value safeties in the NFL draft. So I could see a guy like Hamilton falling and maybe to 11. I don't think he falls too far beyond that. And honestly, maybe teams are starting to catch on, right? Because we're seeing how important safeties are in the modern NFL, being able to have that chess piece on the back end. Maybe someone catches on and he goes in the top 10. I think with his talent, it's totally possible, but I could also see him falling just because traditionally safeties aren't valued as highly in the NFL draft. We'll see. I would take him top 5. But if he falls to Washington, you have to get that guy because that's a difference maker on your back end. If he's not there, if the corners aren't there, maybe you look at wide receiver, who's still there at wide receiver, because you could add another guy opposite Terry. I still don't think they have a guy to complement him on the opposite boundary. That would help spread out the field and give Curtis some more opportunities in the slot. I think maybe a guy like Jameson Williams, if he falls, even though with the injury, I'm not sure I'd go there just because maybe you want a guy who can make an immediate impact. Maybe Chris Olave, maybe Drake London would be a guy. Garrett Wilson, if he falls to 11, he's my wide receiver 1. I would love Garrett Wilson. I think he's got the explosiveness, the twitch, but he really improved as a route runner this year, really can create separation with ease. And then, I haven't even gone over his ability at the catch and after the catch too. I mean, I think I like to use the term 3-level threat. Can they create before the catch, at the catch point, and after the catch? I think Wilson is the best creator in all 3 phases, combined. So I not every phase. Like Drake London is probably the best creator at the catch, but that 3-level threat, that total ability, I think Garrett Wilson has the most well-rounded profile. So he's my wide receiver 1. If you can get him, I think him and Terry would really complement each other very well. You could also go offensive line, maybe, but I do think they have enough depth where maybe they can wait until day 2 or early day 3 for that. I don't think it's necessarily quite as big a need there. So I think you're looking for those blue chip guys at those playmaking positions. Right. I think that's the first thing you look at if you decide to pass up quarterback.
Yeah, totally agree. I'm also a huge Drake London fan.
Yeah, he's interesting because I know he's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But I do think what he does well, he does very well. I mean, the guy is an 80-20 guy in contested situations, and he's got some run after catch ability too. He's a bull after the catch. He's got some underrated agility for his size. So I'm a big fan of his. He's a top 3 receiver for me.
Yeah, definitely. And another guy that I guess a needy position for Washington. I know a lot of people are going to freak out if they pull this card come draft day, but they're in need of a middle linebacker and a guy that's probably the best linebacker in the draft is Nakobe Dean. What is he going to bring to an NFL team this upcoming draft, and where do you have him ranked on your big board?
Yeah, so he's a top 15 guy for me. He is my LB1, really close between him and Devin Lloyd, but I really like Nakobe Dean. You hear about the smarts. He's got it. I mean, you see how quickly he processes pre-snap. It's crazy. He was the commander of that Georgia defense, aligning guys, telling them where to go, seeing plays super quickly. Yeah, and he's got the mental acuity, but then also the explosiveness. I mean, this guy closes in an instant. Some people worry about the size because he's going to be maybe a little bit under 6 foot at 225, but I'm not worried about it. One, if you're shorter, you can get under offensive linemen's pads easier. So, you got that better natural leverage. But 2, if you're 225 pounds, that's a dense guy at just under 6 foot. So he can hit you like a bowling ball. And he's shown that he can compensate for the size with physicality, engaging blocks. There was one play against Kentucky where they were rolling out on a screen to the left, and Nakobe Dean was the only guy who recognized it instantly, and just fought through 3 blocks and then made the tackle in the backfield. So he's one of those guys, an instant game changer. The only thing that, caused me to be hesitant about taking a linebacker in round 1 for Washington is if you're a nickel a lot, you're taking one linebacker off the field for another defensive back. Who are you going to take off the field? Because Cole Holcomb has been pretty good, and Nakobe Dean, you're definitely not taking him off because you're drafting him to be your commander of the defense. Right. That may have been an Easter egg for the future name. We'll get to that later, but you may be, you're not taking Nakobe Dean off. So are you going to take off Jamin Davis? Which, don't get me wrong, he didn't have a good rookie year, but I don't want to suffocate his development right away. I still think you need to give him another year, give him the reps, and maybe hope that he develops. So, and there are going to be some reps where you have 3 linebackers, but in the modern NFL, we're seeing a lot of 5 DB looks. And if that's the case, you're taking one guy off the field. Who's it going to be? That puts you in an interesting bind. And me personally, I'd rather get a veteran guy in free agency at linebacker who has Mike experience, who could maybe help bring Jamin along while also providing utility on the defense. I wouldn't disagree with the Nakobe Dean pick just because of what he can provide to the defense. I think it's exactly what they're missing and maybe what they were hoping to get in Jamin but didn't get it. I think Jamin is better in that outside linebacker role where he can be more reactive, use his physical traits because he's explosive, he's long, he's got that ability. But when you put more on his plate and when he has to communicate with the rest of the defense, it doesn't go over as well. Nakobe Dean is that guy. So if you want that and you need it and you feel like you have to get it, I wouldn't disagree with it just because I love the player, but it does kind of put you in a tough situation with Jamin Davis because, you got to keep him on the field to help develop him, but I'm not really sure you can in some of those nickel situations. So that's the only issue for me there. But, as far as the player goes, I think he's exactly what Washington needs and, really could be a great value deal for them if they decide it's the way they want to go.
That is the best explanation I've had or argument counter to a Nakobe Dean pick at 11 so far that I've heard, Ian. That was absolutely phenomenal. But to wrap this up, Ian, I have a 2-part question for you. First one being, let's bring us back to quarterbacks in a generalized format. Which one of these quarterbacks do you think is the best fit for Washington and what Scott Turner likes to do?
Okay. Yeah. So right there, you kind of narrow it down a little bit. I think if you're Washington, and part of this is what Scott Turner likes to do, a lot of quick routes, timing offense, right? I think that plays into it. I think it's a rookie-friendly offense. I think it would be one that would be easy to ease guys into, especially if you add another receiver, especially if Diami takes that second-year leap. I think there's a lot going for this team, and you got some talent on the offensive line too. Samuel Cosme had some moments in his first year. So, it's not a bad situation for a rookie. But with Washington being in, you want to compete. There's pressure to compete pretty early, right? So I don't know if getting a guy like Malik Willis is the best way to do it, because I do think maybe you want a bridge quarterback to start for a little bit before he goes in. And Desmond Ritter, he's experienced too, but he kind of worries me as well because he's had 4 years and he never quite put it together. The highlight moments are definitely there. He's athletic, he's got the arm, and he's not a bad processor. He actually has those moments where he sees the field quickly, and that comes with experience. It's just the mechanics, the accuracy. It hasn't really come together yet. And it's kind of worrying after 4 years, seeing it not come together consistently. You wonder if it's ever going to. Muscle memory, bad habits, they're so hard to break sometimes. So that's the only thing that concerns me. But with his experience, his athleticism, his ability to hit those short routes with accuracy, I think that it's worth it. I wouldn't love him though. The guys that I have narrowed down for Washington would be the top guys would be Kenny Pickett and Carson Strong, with Matt Corral maybe, just because I think the Lane Kiffin offense is kind of similar to the Scott Turner offense, but I don't love Corral. I probably wouldn't go with him just because I look at when you put more on his plate, when he processes more, it is a lot more inconsistent. Kiffin in 2021, you can say Corral toned down his volatility, and I was noticing that at first. But you look at how Kiffin used him, and he really took a lot off of Corral's plate. When he had to be a decision maker, then it was a lot more volatile, and he takes off and runs. He takes a lot of unnecessary hits. He's got a lighter frame. There's a lot of red flags there for me. So I'm a little bit out on Corral. I think your top guys, if you're Washington, are Carson Strong and Kenny Pickett. And I think they both fit the offense in different ways. If you're looking at Carson Strong, definitely a pocket passer. And I usually don't like pocket passers. I usually like guys who can make plays with their legs. But I have a checklist for pocket passers. You got to be poised. You got to be able to navigate the pocket and step into throwing lanes. You got to have a strong arm so you can hit those tight windows. You got to be able to see the field well, not just see the downfield shots, but be willing to take what's given in the middle ranges. And you got to be able to communicate pre-snap. You got to be able to look at, blitzes and change protections. Carson Strong can do all of that. So he checks all the boxes for me that I would be comfortable taking a pocket passer. And, I think that he can get the most out of this vertical passing attack. You look with Taylor Heineke, they didn't always have that. I think Carson Strong's arm can really stretch the field, especially with Diami Brown. That was his bread and butter in college football, using those stop and goes, those quick releases at the line to stack up guys and get that separation downfield. I feel like that would be great for him to kind of catalyze his development. And then we kind of talked about it with Pickett. I think he's probably one of the best processors in the class, not just manipulating safeties, but, seeing the middle of the field. He can go off script. And when he does go off script, he keeps his eyes up, he sees the field, and he can make those plays on the run. But then also just a tough competitor. He's accurate. He's got the mechanics. He's got a good enough arm. So those are the guys that I would probably circle. And then Sam Howell is a guy that should enter the conversation. I'm not quite as high on him. I'm waiting to get more all 22. From what I've seen this year, there are some issues. When he's pressured, he drops his eyes really easily, and he's not quite the super agile, evasive athlete. He's not a bad athlete, but he can get swallowed up pretty easily. I do think, though, Dyami Brown having that familiarity there, that chemistry could be something, because we know how hard it can be to establish chemistry with your receivers. Having that familiar piece would be a good thing, and we know that his competitive mentality is really going to mesh with Ron Rivera if they meet, if they interview. So that's something to watch. But I think right now, if you're looking for a guy who can compete early and fit your offense, I think it's Kenny Pickett and Carson Strong leading the way. But I wouldn't really disagree with picking any of these guys. I think you can make an argument for all of them. But, you know, when you're evaluating quarterbacks for a team, you really have to split hairs, right? Because if you make the wrong decision, it could set you back. So you got to be careful.
Dude, Ian, you are music to my ears. I got destroyed on Twitter for saying exactly what you did. I saw out of Corral, I saw the same thing with Howell. I saw the same thing with Desmond Ritter. I came away intrigued with his pocket presence. You just killed it, dude. So we're going to end it on that note. Okay, Ian, that was absolutely perfect what you just said. That was music to my ears. But before we get you out of here, if you'd like to plug your social media handle, so our fans are watching, they want to come and follow you now to be able to listen to your great points in film breakdown.
Yeah. So you can follow me, and I'll preface with this: I'm always reevaluating my stances on quarterbacks.
Me too.
You never want to entrench yourself, and I can tell, like, we've all got good heads on our shoulders, but you never want to entrench yourself. You want to be open to different opinions, and if there's more tape and you see something different, don't plant your flag on a guy. Like I like Pickett, but I'm willing to admit there's a lot of uncertainty there. There's a lot of uncertainty with every guy. So never plant your flag, be open to different opinions and, kind of changing your perspective. But yes, if you want to follow me as I'm kind of, being wishy-washy about these quarterbacks all the time, you can follow me at Ian_Cummings_9 on Twitter. PFN, Pro Football Network, is at PFN365. Got a lot of great draft content from myself, Ali Hodgkinson, Cam Meller, and Tony Pauline. So we're going to be stacking it up this season, man. It's going to be a fun draft season. Exciting, but that's a double-edged sword. Exciting, chaotic, but exciting at the end of the day. So it'll be fun.
Yes, and Ian, I'm going to bring you back on very, very soon, especially before the draft, be able to talk this out, because I absolutely love this. This was perfect for what we're looking for, Ian. You are the man. I hope you have a great night. Enjoy your weekend and watch those NFL games.
Yes, sir. You too.
Appreciate it.
All right, Ian.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with Ian Cummings. Dude, he is sharp.
Yeah, I loved his literally all his answers, to be honest with you. But I love a little tidbit about Carson Strong, because honestly, not a lot of people have put Carson Strong in that conversation. It's pretty much been about Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett, and Malik Willis. So, hey, if Carson Strong could come on at the Senior Bowl and the Combine, I wouldn't mind a big, strong-arm guy to kind of get the ball downfield to Terry.
Yeah, dude. And look, I did the film breakdowns all this week, and I got absolutely destroyed with some of my opinions.
I seen it.
Dude, I'm telling you, I saw exactly what Ian did, where Sam Howell and Matt Corral just escape open pockets for no reason and just go run. But Matt Corral's the one that literally gets his body destroyed. I saw that guy get almost decapitated just for wanting to extend a 3rd and 2 when there was an open outlet right in front of him. It's just like, what are you doing? That's not going to happen in the NFL.
He's literally like that superstar, like Texas high school quarterback that's just like everyone loves because he has the moxie. He's running over linebackers. He's getting up, getting in your face after like kind of Phillip Rivers style when you tackle him. But this is the NFL. You're going to get obliterated if you try to do that against a 260-pound, 250-pound linebacker.
Yeah, and look, one of the biggest reasons why I look into like their whole pocket presence and everything like that, and being able to navigate the pocket, keeping your eyes downfield, reading coverage and stuff like that. The reason why I wasn't really high on Sam Howell or Matt Corral was the fact that when you're in the NFL, the throwing lanes get smaller, they get tighter, and it's harder to throw the football. Well, if you already have a tendency in college where it's easier to throw the football, to run when there's an open pocket, when there's receivers open, what's going to happen when you get to the pros? You're going to run all the time, way more than you did in college, and that is a recipe for disaster unless you're Malik Willis or Lamar Jackson, that type of guy, where defenses are scared crapless every time that you run out of the pocket because nobody can catch you. That's not going to happen with those two other guys. And that's why I'm kind of concerned about it. But one thing I will say, Sam Howell's offensive line was absolutely dreadful. I mean, it's not really his fault, to be perfectly honest, dude.
That's why the Carson Strong kind of tidbit that he threw in there is kind of intriguing because if you listen to what Ron said about what he likes in a quarterback, what he wants in a quarterback, he wants a guy that obviously, like he said, strong in the pocket, good feet, strong arm, but he also said twitchy, kind of has that mobility aspect to him. And like he said, Carson Strong's not really that mobile guy, but if his processing and his mental acumen and his pocket presence overtakes his mobility, then I wouldn't mind them going with him and maybe like I don't know about number 11 overall, but second round, maybe third round.
Yes, and now we're going to go to fan questions before we're joined by our second guest here. But let's go with the Colonel's question of the rookie class quarterbacks. We're already on the subject. Who do you like the best, and who would be the best fit for our team?
Yeah, I've been vocal on Twitter that if they're going to go the rookie route, I would like to see them probably start from day one so they can just get not really thrown to the fire, but just get those reps from day one and kind of just hit the ground running, hopefully. And like Ian just said, and a lot of other people have said, that guy would be probably most likely Kenny Pickett. That's my number one target if they're going to go the rookie route. I think he's primed to be there at number 11, and if you have to move up a couple spots, so be it. But I definitely think it's Kenny Pickett with his 4 years of starting at Pittsburgh in college. Yeah, just like I said, his overall processing, like Ian was talking about, arm strength. He has that twitch kind of mobility that Ron Rivera and Scott Turner want for this offense. And I think that, like I said, he can be the day one, just plug him in and play and hit the ground running week one.
For me, Colonel, I am the outlier. I am the minority in this aspect. I think the best fit for the Washington football team is Desmond Ritter. And the reason why I say that, Scott Turner coming from North Turner, he has the build, the 6'5" height that Cam Newton brought. Cam Newton is not a crisp passer. He's not accurate, so to speak. Neither is Desmond Ritter. But what this guy did is for 4 years, he was a leader of his team. He is calm, cool, he's poised. But there are some inconsistencies there. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, his mechanics, his accuracy is a big issue. And I totally get that. That's why I don't think he's warrant of the 11th overall pick. But what I do think is that this kid has the tools, the bare minimum. When you're looking at a quarterback, how can you transition to the pros? And I talked about those throwing lanes. He has shown for me on film that he can diagnose defensive coverages. He knows where the good outlets are in those coverages. He stands tall in the pocket. He navigates the pocket and uses his legs when he has to. But he always keeps his eyes downfield and is looking to throw the ball. I don't think he had a lot of help at Cincinnati this past year. His EPA kind of went down on long third and fourth downs, and I get that. There's a long way to go. But when you're talking about kind of like making sure that they just have the tools in place in order to get to that next level, I think it is Desmond Ritter with a little bit of adjustment. All of these quarterbacks are going to need some sort of time, right? And I like the guy the most that has shown the poise, has his eyes, has his mind about him, and everything like that. So I know I'm going to get bludgeoned for this, but I think it's Desmond Ritter is the best fit personally. I love Malik Willis. I think he's a matchup nightmare for defenses. But it's just with being at Liberty, I'm not seeing the kind of coverage manipulation. I'm not seeing that kind of all-wherewithal leader there because let's just say you take away everyone, all the weapons that possible in the pros happens with injuries and everything. Can you bank on that quarterback being able to score you points with backups? Can they do that diligently like a surgeon going all the way down the field finding the outlets? That's what I'm looking for. Can you stand tall in the pocket behind this offensive line? Can you find your guys to get the ball to them? And that's why I think it is Desmond Ritter, no doubt. Now, our next question is for our guy, from the Colonel, obviously. After quarterback, is there a consensus that our linebacking core needs scrutiny? Better players, new linebacking coach, etc. I think you guys were pretty soft on our linebackers this year. I saw it as one of our biggest weaknesses.
Yeah, no, I guess compared to what people say on Twitter and everywhere else, I guess we were soft, but it was definitely the biggest weakness on the team, even weaker than the quarterback position, if you ask me. But I think that you saw what Cole Holcomb can do and what he's become and what he can be in the future. Obviously, with Jamin Davis, that drastically dragged down.
I know it's on your mind.
Yeah, it drastically dragged down the play of the linebackers and the overall kind of look onto what the linebacking core was. But again, I think that a lot of people have been, and they obviously the coaching staff, it took a little bit to notice this too. But I think they just wanted to see if Jamin could really become that Mike linebacker. But I think they've realized that he's an off the ball linebacker. They can use him in that kind of Micah Parsons role where He's coming off the edge. He's read and react, kind of like Ian said. Not a lot on his plate. He can just read and react. So I definitely think that linebacker is behind quarterback the number 2 position of need this offseason. And whether it's free agency or the draft, I'm pretty sure they're 100% going to address that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there. Now, let's go to our Discord chat server where all of our VIP folks are in. We got like Jeff Miles, Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. But let's get it from Big Tony Shivers. He said he's tired of our wide receivers getting underthrown or Terry having to make a spectacular play like in the Chargers game. Which draft QBs are accurate deep throwers?
Yeah.
I think it's Sam Howell is the one.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you're looking for a big arm, down the field accuracy, obviously he was college teammates with De'Ami Brown, and that kind of trend in the NFL recently has been link up the college receiver with the college quarterback. They already have familiarity, and they can kind of hit the ground running. But like you said, it would definitely be Sam Howell. Every highlight you see is probably from the far hash to the sideline. Big cannon arm, always accurate. Not always, but pretty accurate most of the time. But again, like Ian said, does he have the processing skills and whatnot to be an actual NFL quarterback from day one or even in year one?
Yeah, and look, I like Sam. We have to take into consideration, like, Ryan Mallett was somebody that was like a deep passer, right? And so was like Drew Lock and Francis. But we are joined by our next guest, George Carmi. Hey, George, it's good to see you from Full Press Coverage. I just want to give you a heads up. We are also going to be joined by Logan Paulsen. So what we're going to do is we're going to have like questions, and so we can base it off of the draft and of the Washington football team, if you're down for that. And so
Sounds good, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, brother. You know, I love your show as well. I think you've done such a great job with that, dude.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely killed it. And now we are joined by our next guest, the brother of the podcast at this point. And how many jobs does Logan Paulsen have at this point? Well, how you doing, sir?
Good, man. You doing all right?
Absolutely, we are doing great, Mr. Logan Paulsen. Now, I have to ask you, sir. I know by now you've probably watched a buttload of film. You've gone through probably the season, right? And so you've seen a lot of everything with this football team. Where's the number one area that this team has to get better at besides quarterback?
Yes, quarterback is like everyone's easy answer and like makes sense as to why. I think the next one would be linebacker. Honestly, I think middle linebacker, if they can get a guy in free agency or in the draft this year, there's a couple good middle ones, like the kid from Georgia, the kid from Utah, a little undersized, but they got some playmaking ability and seem to have a nice feel for taking on blocks. You know, I think that would be a nice fit. I think the other way they could go, I'm not saying they should do this, is they go like big run-stopping defensive tackle, like the kid from Georgia, for example, maybe late in the first, early second round. And then I think, because one of the things that Jamin really struggles with is taking on blocks. And if you watch that guy, Jordan Davis, I think is his name, when he's at Georgia, he covers up the middle linebacker really nicely. So I wanted to know how the guy from Georgia took on blocks, but you never see it because he doesn't have to do it. So why not just erase that problem and let Jamin Davis run around like a lunatic back there? I think that might be an easy kind of maybe secondary solution. Everyone thinks linebacker, but maybe you can kind of have a little different philosophy along the defensive line to get that done.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm going to jump back to what everyone wants to talk about, which is the quarterbacks. And we've had a couple of people on, and we've asked them, who do you think would be the best fit for Washington so far? I don't know how far you've like kind of dove into these upcoming quarterback class, but from what you've seen so far, who would be, I guess, kind of the best fit for Washington and what Scott Turner wants to do in this offense?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. And if you're a freaking football fan, they're all going to be at the Senior Bowl, which is like kind of unprecedented. So like circle that date on your calendar. I know I have. I'm super fired up about it because very rarely do you get to see the top five minus Matt Corral kind of back to back in the same offenses with the same coaching staff, receiving the same information, throwing the same guys. So that's going to be a huge date. I think obviously Kenny Pickett's probably the best of the bunch. You know, it's weird because he wouldn't even be in like the top five from last year. You know, I think he's better than Trask. I think he's better than Mills, is that his name, down in Houston?
Davis Mills. Yeah.
But it's tighter than I'd like it to be, considering this guy's going to go in the first round. And then obviously I think Corral. I've watched a couple of games of his. Watched 3 or 4 games. 2, I was like, man, this guy's fantastic. And then the other 2 against Alabama, Tennessee, it was very kind of middling. A lot of RPO stuff. A lot of his production was inflated by that. So you're like, I like what he brings from an athletic standpoint. I like his arm. I like his quick release, but how is he as a decision maker? All those things, right? And so that's the issue. You can go through every single guy and say, like Malik Willis, huge arm, great athlete, plays with great physical strength. I mean, his tape is just a compilation of highlights, but it's also a compilation of lowlights. Yeah. So like you kind of got to work that out. It reminds me a lot of like when I watched Josh Allen. I'm not saying they're the same guy, but it's big upside with him. But he's probably, I'd say, at a minimum 8 games away. So you got to kind of, if you're going to go that route, you got to find somebody to kind of sit in the chair for a little bit, hold down the fort. That could be Taylor Heineke, that could be Trubisky, that could be Mariota, whoever that is. But because he's not ready to go. But I think he gives you the best opportunity for kind of like that game-changing type guy if he can get there. So.
Yeah, you killed it. George, you have a question for Logan?
Logan, real quick. So I know there's definitely conversations regarding like, whether we should go the college route or the veteran route. How do you feel about some of these veterans that are coming out? Do you feel confident in Jimmy Garoppolo? Do you feel confident in Derek Carr? Like, what do you see on tape? Would you be happy to be receiving balls from them? Do you think they can shape our offense? What do you think?
Well, I think, I played with Jimmy Garoppolo when I was in San Francisco.
Forgot about that.
So, I have a lot of respect for him as a player, as a leader. Like, he's got tremendous leadership qualities from a physical standpoint. He's got one of the best releases. Like, even when you're just playing catch with him, the ball kind of jumps on you in this very unfamiliar way. And so he's got some amazing skill set. I think he's a good student. He's not like, Matt Ryan level, but he's good. It's important to him. He studies hard. I think he just makes a couple decisions every game that are going to kind of leave you scratching your head, but I do think he would elevate this group. I think the question is, does he elevate it enough to warrant the price tag? I think is the thing that I'm going to kind of bring up here on this podcast is with every quarterback, like for example, Kirk Cousins, I think is a great example of this. If he was playing right now for $20 million, you'd be like, man, the Vikings did an outstanding job. But he's going for 32 or whatever he is. And then it's not a good deal all of a sudden. So if you can get them in here at the price is right, then it's a great signing for the team, even if they're not elevating, because you can fill in other spots. You can bring in a receiver, you can bring in an offensive lineman, maybe a running back, fullback, whoever you need to bring, tight end. But if they're coming in a big price tag, then all of a sudden your offense is stuck. We're stuck there and we can only build through the draft moving forward, which is fine. But all of a sudden we're in an arms race with Philadelphia. They got 3 first-round draft picks. New York's got 2 first-round draft picks. So to me, that's the risk of going that veteran route. I think Ron Rivera is going to feel a tremendous amount of pressure to do that because this fan base is not very patient. If you're trying to build a team, you say we're bringing a stopgap for another year. We hope we draft a quarterback this year. If it doesn't work out, honestly, we draft again next year because it frees up money. It lets you build a better roster. If you look at the teams that have made runs at the Super Bowl in the minus any Tom Brady led team, it's all with a young quarterback and a really fleshed out roster. The second that quarterback starts getting paid a lot of money, the roster quality decreases and the quarterback can no longer elevate the group around him. So that's where I get a little bit dicey in this organizational building philosophy here, because to me, it all comes down to how do you save money? How do you keep value at the quarterback position? I mean, obviously, if you get Patrick Mahomes, if you get Aaron Rodgers, if you get Tom Brady, if you get any of those guys that are the top 5, yeah, you're fine because they elevate all those people around them. But that's why those top 5 guys are so valuable, because they cover up all your ails on your roster. If you're anybody that's not them, you can't. Like Derek Carr is a very, very, very good quarterback, but he's not a top 5 guy. So you see, like Darren Waller goes out, Henry Ruggs goes to jail. Hunter Renfro's hurt, right? All those things start happening and the roster just kind of stagnates. His play's still good, but they're not winning games. They can't be competitive anymore, right? And if I look at the talent here, I say, no offense to Logan Thomas, but is he better than Darren Waller? No. Do we have a Henry Ruggs type guy? No. Do we have a Hunter Renfro type guy? No. We have Terry McLaurin, we have Gibson, we have McKissick if they get him back, right? And can he elevate that group? And I don't want to say no, but I'm doubtful. I'm dubious, I guess is the way I would phrase that.
Yeah, and Logan, it came about earlier this week. It was reported from Scott Abraham from the news channel. I forget which one, so bless me for that. But he said that Ron Rivera will be in California for the rebrand video on the 2nd, and he also will not be at the Senior Bowl, but he has some obligations through video communication. A lot of people have talked a lot of crap about Rivera, especially with Jamin Davis, that it was his pick and everything like that. What do you think of this with Rivera not being at the Senior Bowl? Like, do you have an issue with that? Or is this more of an indication that Ron Rivera is not the one making these personnel decisions? He's just kind of writing off on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what I would say. And, everyone gives him shit for the Jamin Davis pick, but I know Jamin Davis didn't have the best year this year, but when you watch him and you watch the stuff he does well, that's the thing when I watch the defensive stuff, like when he flashes and you're like, there are very few human beings on the face of God, green earth that can do what he's doing. Now, is he polished? No. Does he need to grow? Yes. But I think the tools are there, and I think you have the potential to be something really special moving forward. We talked about the defensive line already. Maybe you insulate him a little bit more. You play him at the will so he's not taking on blocks every single down. But he's got some skill set that make you go, wow. And rookie linebackers struggle. That's just a thing, right?
Yep.
If you look at Zaven Collins down in Arizona, we've talked about that before, like he had a rough year. Yep. He played even less than Jamin, which is hard to believe, right? So, and I liked him more than Jamin. So, like, that just goes to show you they have a tough time. Like, that's the group in the defense that's getting abused and manipulated more than any other group. Mm-hmm. But back to the Ron Rivera thing, I think that's good in a way that he's not going. I think it's good that there's other people that he trusts that are there to make the decision that can kind of dedicate their full intellectual availability to it, right? Because one of the things about him, like being in this GM head coach hybrid role, is there's just too much information to process, right? Like when I do right now I'm doing the TV show, right? So I'm reviewing the offense for the year. I can't do a good job of that because I'm also doing draft prep. I'm also doing Senior Bowl prep, right? I've got too many things going at once to do its due diligence, right? So you need to have that pro personnel scout, right? That's evaluating all the free agents. You need the college director scouting to kind of just triage some of that information. You need those guys to come back with good reports from the Senior Bowl. Like it's just, there is so much information. Like I guarantee you he's going to look over. I guarantee you he'll look at it. But he doesn't have to be there watching every single day. If Scott Turner's there, that's great. Let him go, right? He's the offensive coordinator. I would imagine he'll probably be there. He'll have a lot of say in this decision. So there will be people there from this organization. Like Ron will review that information. Like Mike Shanahan didn't go to every Senior Bowl. Like they've got other stuff to do. But as long as you have someone there that you trust to evaluate and make decisions that is kind of the same mindset as you, I think that's totally fine. And that goes back to like who he's hiring, who he's bringing in. Obviously, those are big deals as well.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, especially in this day and age when every practice is videotaped, every throw is pretty much videotaped. He's going to see what they're doing down there in practice every day during the week. Jumping back to, I guess, obviously it's the offseason, and this team kind of showed flashes here and there of being able to play with the better teams in the league like Tampa Bay and stuff like that. What are some things that they did well that you want to see them maybe carry over into 2022?
That's a great question. I think what I'd like to see from the defensive side of the ball, I did my defensive breakdown for Julie's show, and basically I came to the conclusion that if you take out those first 4 games and the 2 COVID games, like statistically they're a top 5 defense and they're playing good football teams in there. And so what's crazy to me about that is that it just took them 4 games to kind of figure out what the heck was going on. Like Landon starting, like who's the rotations, like all these different things. Like, and I understand they've got COVID, they're dealing with things in the offseason, but I think having a better plan of making sure your evaluations are sound early on is important, because they did the same thing last year with Troy Apke, and Troy Apke's been a great special team addition for this team and a great contributor in that capacity, but he probably shouldn't have been starting for the team. And so making sure you use the preseason, find a way to get some joint practices in there, because I've told this story a million times, but I've been on bad football teams with bad offenses, and we thought our defense was really good. I'm like, man, these guys are balling, like they're picking us off every day in practice. And you go to your first joint practice or you go to the preseason game and you're like, oh no, we're just terrible. And like that totally changes the evaluation. You're like, well, we really screwed that one up. So as long as they can find a way to kind of get a barometer earlier as opposed to like right away, because I think when you look at what they did once they kind of settled in, and you got to remember in the back end, they had a whole bunch of new pieces coming in. They did a nice job. So to me, the biggest thing for the defense is making sure that happens earlier. And then on offense, I think they did some nice things running the football. I think they did some nice things on third down when they were winning football games. I really think they need to find a way to get more explosive a little bit more consistently. I'm starting that. I've got a video coming out on Monday or Wednesday next week, which will kind of look at this a little bit more. I think I'm at least in the games I've watched, they probably have the lowest kind of shot down the field percentage of any team that I've ever seen. Yeah. And it just is so hard to be that good down in and down out, drive after drive. It doesn't doesn't work that way in the NFL as much as you want it to. Like even Tom Brady, right? He gets some freebies every once in a while, like the touchdown to Mike Evans over the weekend. That's a 35-yard touchdown, right? That's an explosive play. Instead of having to get 2 more first downs to get that touchdown, right? Yeah. So instead of going 9 plays, you get it done in 1. Like they need to find ways to get that done a little bit. And I think that's a personnel issue. I think that's a little bit of a game plan issue. So whatever they need to do to get that done, I really think they need another receiver here, and I'd like to see them draft somebody if they could with kind of big play ability. Yeah, but I, that's something that they really need to look hard at. And again, that comes down to offensive line and protection. If you feel comfortable, like look at what Dallas did when they did try to take shots, they had a hard time holding up in certain situations. So it's a multifactorial thing that needs to get taken care of there, and I think it's quarterback, receiver, offensive line, all those things, game plan. And I think that is something that I think needs to shift because it just makes it easier. Like I remember Kyle Shanahan when I was here with Robert and we were rolling in 2012, I was like, oh, I wish I could catch more balls. He's like, you're a third down guy. And our quarterback, I mean, that's what it was. I'm not going to be mad about it. And our quarterback isn't a third down guy. And what he meant by that is he's got a big arm. He wants to push the ball down the field. He doesn't read defenses super well. And so why do I want to make him work through something he's not good at? Let's push the ball down. And I think that that's something that this team would really benefit from.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, Logan. Now, but to wrap this up, it's kind of a 2-part question. What was your thought and your opinion on the Dak Prescott comments after the game?
What did he say?
Throwing the trash at fans. Like basically he was saying it was bad for the fans to be throwing the trash at their own players, but when the reporters reminded him it was actually at the referees, he was like, oh, well, credit to them. And then
I think in like a post-game interview, you're not really of your right mind. You know what I mean? You've just gone through this extremely emotional experience. They've lost. They should have in a game they probably should have won with the roster that should win now. They're ready to go. They didn't do it. I'm sure he's super frustrated. I'm sure he's irritated. I'm sure he's not thinking clearly. And so, yeah, I don't think that's the right thing to say, obviously. But I also am going to give him a little bit of grace here and say he's probably not super dialed into like what that reporter is asking at that moment.
And then McCarthy spoke to reporters yesterday, and he made a comment that he thought that the players were nervous in the pregame prayer in the locker room. I mean, is McCarthy being very honest here, or is he just not very smart?
I mean, it's probably a little bit of both. Maybe I don't know. Like, you can be both of those things, right?
But like as a former player, right? Like that's not something you want your head coach telling the world.
I don't think so. I mean, I think if it's true, like, what am I going to say to him? He's the coach, and like that's honestly now, like that's what coaches are doing more, like as opposed to honest. Like you see Aaron Rodgers do this. Like he starts calling people out in the media because he knows that's where it affects people more acutely.
Okay.
And so I think I look at that and I think maybe this is a tool, kind of saying to Jerry Jones, saying to the team, also kind of cover your own ass a little bit, like, hey, like they were nervous. And like, I know it's my job as a coach to get ready, but that is a variable here. And it's kind of to be expected. That's a pretty young roster. They don't go to the playoffs every year. So I'm not surprised by that, but I am surprised that he would come out and say it. But I guess what I'm saying is I think that's the way the league is moving, right? Coaches, players are using it as a tool in a different way than they've used it before.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, sorry, what were you saying, George?
Can I ask him a question, actually, if you don't mind?
Of course.
Yeah, so Logan, real quick, obviously we underachieved as a team this year. What is your confidence level as our whole regime in regard to our coordinators, in regard to like Jack Del Rio and Scott Turner? I know Scott Turner is kind of polarizing to our fan base. Were his limitations more so like his play calling, or was it more like just Heineke as a quarterback or lack of weapons? Like, what was your overall perception of it?
I mean, that's the $1 million question right there. Seriously, I think so two-part question, two-part answer here. One is I think that they achieved probably exactly what they were supposed to achieve.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And they probably, the COVID thing is a weird variable because I think they probably win that first Philadelphia game, or at least it's a little bit closer. Dallas, I think it looks like a bad loss, but it's probably closer again. Like if you look at the 18-24 or whatever it was the first time they played, I think it's something comparable to that. So I think they're right there with the class of the division. I think that should make you feel good as a fan. And I think this is a first place schedule. They came out a little bit slow. They're got some injuries. Everyone's got injuries, but I think this is about where I thought they'd be in year 2 of the rebuild. So I think next year, easier schedule. I would expect the defense to show a big improvement, right? Because they're going to be playing less effective quarterbacks across the league, right? And I think it's going to be better. just by default of schedule, right? With regard to the coordinators, I think Taylor Heinicke has some limitations. I think Scott Turner at points in this season did a nice job of speaking to those limitations and calling games to support him, which he should do. And there were other times where I thought he was a little bit conservative in terms of his own personal growth and what he could do to kind of make the offense more effective.
Okay.
So I think it's both, like with anything that's really complicated, it's always a nuanced answer.
Nuanced, yeah.
And I think like he could be better for sure. I think he handled Taylor Heinicke's limitations well, but I also thought, like, just as a simple example, in my opinion, like when you go back and you watch that the first game of the year against the LA Chargers, for example, they're moving Keenan Allen all over the field, right? They're moving him into bunches. They're moving in the backfield. They're moving him with stacks to help him get free releases, to help their best player be effective in that offense. And then I look at this offense, and that's not how they do it. And that's a personal philosophy. Like I came up with Kyle Shanahan, I came up with Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur was my coach, and they do a lot of that, right? To help that number one receiver kind of be a dog and help them eat and help make their job more effective, right? And Terry at times this year could have been better too. I think he would tell you that also. But I don't see that. I don't see that kind of pushing of the game plan. And maybe, again, that could be limited by Taylor Heinicke and what he feels comfortable calling in the huddle, what he feels comfortable saying, all those different things. But yeah, I mean, it is both. And I would like to see more from him. Scott Turner's moving forward as he gets more comfortable. I mean, this is the second year calling an offense. So I'd like to see some more of that in year 3. Again, not a lot of weapons on this team. Receiver, like we talked about, another toy to play with in there, especially if Curtis Samuel is healthy. I think that will give us a better barometer of where this offense and where he is at.
And that speaks to the conservative of Scott Turner, like you said, because with Keenan Allen, they're looking for ways to attack you, to get him open, to get him out there. With Scott Turner, it didn't seem like that this year and was more conservative, like, oh, you're doing it to me, there's something else we can do. But Logan, I can't thank you enough for joining us, sir. You have the best Instagram account out there, Mr. Logan Paulsen _82. Did I get it right?
Logan _Paulsen 82. Very close.
Very close. I butcher it every time, Logan. I can't thank you enough, sir. This was a fantastic being able to listen to you. And then I wanted to give you a air high five for the Jamin Davis comics. I absolutely agree with you, sir. I hope you have a great night, Logan. Tell Julie and company we said hello. Enjoy the offseason, sir. We'll get you back on here very, very soon, brother.
Appreciate you guys.
It, Logan.
All right, Logan.
All right, Logan, peace.
All right, everybody. Now, to wrap up this episode, let's move on and let's talk about some of our fan questions that we had gotten online. And one of them is from Orange Crush 92. So, George, I'm going to go to you with this.
Sounds good.
Who this season coming up, will be the number 3 slot wide receiver, a.k.a.?
Interesting. So, I guess I have wishful thinking here, right? So, in a dream scenario for me, I want to take a wide receiver 2 in the second round. That number 42 pick, I want to get a wide receiver right there. So in a dream scenario, we have one of those Alabama guys that happen to fall due to injury or fall due to, anything that happened during the offseason. And basically, I would love to have them be our true wide receiver 2. Someone that's an astute route runner that could actually play very well. That would bump Curtis Samuel to the slot position. And I would love that because I think Washington has to operate like Curtis Samuel doesn't exist. I know that sounds really like a cutthroat business, but you kind of have to do that, right? Like we had him this year. He's a good talent. We haven't actually seen him there. And if we can actually utilize Curtis Samuel in a variety of ways instead of like a wide receiver 2 where we have to depend on him, but more of like a gadget player, more of like a jet sweep kind of guy, that would make our offense more lethal. So in an ideal situation, I would love to have another wide receiver 2, whether it's a free agent or whether it's a draft pick more realistically, and Curtis Samuel being in the slot. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and Orange Crush in his question had said you can only choose one guy, and I agree with you with it being Curtis Samuel. I think that is where you're really looking at the best possible aspect of your team, because if you can get that solidified wide receiver number 2, hopefully like Mike Williams or something like that, that would really help out this offense. And then you have Diami Brown as wide receiver 4, Adam Humphries wide receiver 5. That's really setting yourself up.
Real deep.
Right. What about you, Hall? Do you have anybody different thinking for that wide receiver 3?
No, I'm pretty much in lockstep with y'all that obviously I was hyping up Michael Gallup, and I know he was coming into free agency.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Mike Puckett texted me the other night saying he thought that they were going to go after Mike Gallup until I reminded him of the ACL tear.
Yeah. I mean, again, I've been harping on going after Derek Carr and Michael Gallup this whole offseason because I think those 2 additions would be great for this offense. Obviously, Derek Carr, who knows about that. But, again, Michael Gallup with the injury kind of that's up in the air as well. But like you said, Mike Williams would be a great outside receiver. Maybe like George said, draft a guy and they can play on the outside. And then, like you said, you can get Curtis Samuel in the slot where if you go back to Carolina, he had his best year, his best numbers playing out of the slot. So I definitely think that he'd be a great slot receiver. You can move him all over the field. You can have Antonio Gibson, McKissick, and Simmons on the field at the same time, which that's a whole lot of speed to go with Terry as well. So I definitely think that Curtis Samuel being healthy is going to be not the key to our offense, but it's going to be a huge, huge factor in next year's offense.
Absolutely.
My only fear with actually getting a free agent wide receiver, and I'd love to have one, is I hope and I expect Washington to invest heavily in Terry McLaurin this offseason, right? If they re-sign him, and if you actually look at like where his salary should slot, it should be about $21 million per year, which is a lot of money, right? So if you have him at 21, you have Curtis Samuel at 12, 13, that's already $33 million in a wide receiver. So I don't know if we can actually go and pursue those, but honestly, Michael Gallup would be great because he's a good deep threat, would fit our offense really, really well. But I just don't know if Washington's going to go that route.
And that's a really good counter argument. The other argument I have to that is that I think Curtis Samuel has an out after year 2. And so that logjam at money would be able to relieve yourself. And you could break down the money on which year it gets the most. You know what I mean? So you can always help yourself out with that. But now let's travel across the pond to our guy, Scott Hartley, who wanted me to remind you guys. Which wanted me to remind you guys, they have a UK draft party in Edinburgh, Scotland, that's going to be going on Thursday, April 28th at 10 p.m. through the weekend to April 30th at Wilkie's Bar and Lounge. Make sure you guys go get your tickets for that.
That's awesome.
To all my UK folk. That is going to be a blast to be able to hang out with Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, and then our guy Pablo Man as well. But Scott's question for us, of all the free agents currently on the team, who would be the biggest loss if they were not re-signed? George.
That's an interesting one. So I think the easy option would be J.D. McKissick, right? I think he's definitely that third down back, and I think our offense took a step back at the end of the season, right? When he got hurt and he was out, I do think that he, we lost that variability. He can basically be a blocking running back. He can be a receiving running back out of the backfield. So I love J.D. McKissick. I do think he adds an extra flair and element to our offense. And, my 3 guys are McKissick, Sims, and Carter. Actually, really like Deandre Carter a lot too, but I don't want to step on your toes. But I'd say McKissick for now.
For me, it's Tim Settle. I think that he really is one of the most underrated guys on this team. Highly productive when he does get snaps. And I know a lot of people have talked about Deron Payne possibly getting traded away in the offseason. Well, this would be a reason why you would do that, because you could get Tim Settle for much less than you could for Deron Payne. So get something in return for Deron. Re-sign Tim Settle, who is already highly productive in the snaps that he gets, and it's kind of interchangeable at that point. But I don't mean to talk down about Deron Payne. I'm just saying, for me, it's Tim Settle. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I was going to go McKissick, but my second guy was definitely going to be Deandre Carter. I think he was a huge special teams addition for this team, who obviously over the years has been lackluster as far as return game in the special teams area. And I think he definitely provided a spark, and at one point was like first in all-pro voting. And then if you look what he did as receiver for that little game stretch where he was pretty productive for us, and coming off a guy that pretty much had no reps as a receiver, I think he did very well in this offense. So just from a special teams aspect, I think he's vital to the team. So that would be my reasoning for re-signing him.
And that's a good one. But real quick, George, Scott wants to know, what's your go-to meal on game day? Are you a wings guy or a slice of pizza or a full sit-down meal guy?
Damn. All right. So I'm a pizza guy in general. I just love pizza all the time. It's my absolute favorite meal. Right. Yeah. And we're all Moco guys. So I'm a Lido's pizza guy too. I live in Durwood right around the corner from here. So I love Lido's, man. It's awesome.
You live right down the street from me.
There you go, man. I'm on Durwood right down the street. So yeah, I love Lido's pizza, but that's a Monday through Friday type of thing for me. So if I want to have a football meal, it's going to be buffalo wings, man. I love buffalo wings all day long. They're so good, man. I love it.
My man, if you go down to that 7-Eleven off East Goody at 5 in the morning, you'll see me there every single day. Every single day, George.
Sounds good.
For me, it's wings. I think that is obviously the best possible thing you can do, just because I think wings is just like the perfect meal, and like wings and fries, but you can never go wrong with the pizza, especially when you got people over. It's much cheaper to be able to get a pizza and then to be able to get like 4 pounds of wings and cook them and all that headache. So for me, it's pizza. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I mean, I can't go wrong with wings. I'm a wing fanatic and pizza as well. Like
Glizzy
George
King.
said,
He likes glizzies on game day.
No, sir.
You're not getting that picture. But to wrap up the fan questions, George, I'm going to you from our guy Paul Murphy in the UK, the Pablo man. Oi!
Sounds good.
Which of our rookies is best placed to have a great season next year?
Wow. So that's a hard one. So let me think about that. So John Bates showed some things this year. I really like the way John Bates kind of shined at the end of the season and did a really good job kind of stepping up in the clutch. So I do think he could definitely rise to the occasion. So I think he's the safest bet. But one thing I'm investing in, and I really hope he takes in this next step, is Benjamin St-Juste. Man, I liked him a lot. I thought he was more of he was a long corner. I thought he showed some signs. My only fear with him is concussions, and we saw that with Jordan Reed. And small concussions can shorten your career, and I hope that doesn't happen to him. But if he can stay healthy and if he can provide some sort of flexibility in our defensive backfield, I'd love to see that. But safe bet's John Bates.
For me, it's Jamin Davis, and the reason why I say that is you saw Landon Collins. He looked confused early on until they moved his position. Then things started coming more naturally to Landon. He started playing back to his former self. And Jamin Davis, I thought, looked incredible in that Week 17 game when they moved him to the Sam linebacker spot. Not a pass rusher, but more of an edge setter, possibly blitzing at times, and then going out on that tight end, absorbing that contact, because you want him to learn instincts, want him to learn how to plug gaps and to be able to take away the isolation on the outside shoulder and stuff like that. And I think Jamin Davis did a great job in that one sitting. And him being a rookie last year, he didn't really get to start learning this defense until about August, so it took a while. This whole offseason is going to be able to talk to guys, to the coaches. He doesn't have to stay away from them, like last season where it's kind of like tampering. He can talk to them. He can get better mentally, and that's where a lot of the game is. We talked about this all. This game is 80% mental, 20% physical, and I think Jamin Davis is going to be the one because the bar is set low. Everyone's talking crap about the kid. I think he's going to blow up next season, especially with this position change. What about you, Hall?
Yeah, I'm going to go on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Sam Cosmi. I think that whenever he was healthy and in the game, he was a solid right tackle, staple at right tackle. You weren't hearing his name called a lot, which is a good thing if you're an offensive lineman. And I definitely think that if he can stay healthy and play maybe hopefully all 17 games next year, but at least like between 14 to 15 games next year, I think that he'll be up there as far as like the rankings go with blocking, pass blocking, all that PFF numbers and stuff like that. I think he'll be up there as far as right tackles go. And I definitely think that he'll be a solid kind of Morgan Moses type anchor on the right side for many, many years to come. Definitely starting with next year.
Yep,
good run blocker.
Yeah, we got the two towers on the outside now protecting the quarterback, which is great. The Chris Bryant, the hog farmer, Chris, we all love Chris. He had put in a question to me because we were talking, and basically I was like, look, as long as I don't think anyone's going to be eating poop if we won the Super Bowl. Horse poop like the Philadelphia Eagles fans. So he brought up the question. I told him I was going to use this for the pod tonight. But basically, George, if it meant that Washington would win a Super Bowl, would you eat a piece of horse poop? And I want to preface it by saying this. You don't have to chew it, but you can just like instantly swallow it. Let's make it easy on you.
Is the question cause and effect? Like, if I eat the horse poop, we win the Super Bowl?
Yes.
If that's the case, then yes, I'll do it for the DMV. You know what I'm saying? But if it's the other way around, if it's like after we win the Super Bowl, I'm not going to eat anything. You know what I'm saying? But if I have to, then I'll be all right. I'll do it for us. You know what I'm saying? But no, I'm not going to eat poop. That's like not high on my priority list at all.
Man of the people.
Yeah, George is a team player. Taking one for the team. I love it, dude. Yeah, I'm not doing that. I've made too much fun of Eagles. I've made too much fun of Eagles fans. Yeah, let them do that up in Philly. Let Keith and his wife do that all night long.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't need to be doing that. What are you all?
Yeah,
you do it.
I'm gonna have to. I'm thinking about it honestly.
All right, and it's recorded.
Oh man, that might tip the scales. You know what?
You put in a hot dog bun, put some ketchup on it.
I was going to say, are sauces involved? That's the other part of the question. I have no idea.
You can dress it up how you want, George. I do not care.
Some relish.
We're so thirsty. We're so thirsty for a Super Bowl here. You know what? I'm like my man George. I'll take one for the team. I'll be a man of the people.
Oh, my goodness. You guys
I'm in, Mike.
Crazy.
All right, Mike.
Oh, man. Hey,
I got a question for you guys real quick before we wrap this
up. What's up?
With this whole stadium talk, like about maybe like possibly going out to Prince William County, which is like way out there.
Mm-hmm.
What is you as us Moco Maryland people, which I feel like the people that I've talked to and asked about this are like, if they move it all the way out there, then obviously they're like never gonna go to a game like probably ever again because it's so far out there. But I just want to get you guys' thoughts as like Maryland fans and like Montgomery County residents just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Where do y'all stand on like the possible stadium being out in Prince William County?
Want me to go, Kyle? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm geographically stupid, so you have to explain to me where Prince William County is first before I can answer. So, George, you can go.
All right. So, obviously, so for all of us, people that listen, obviously Montgomery County is adjacent to Washington, D.C. We're about 20, 30 minutes away from the stadium. So, like, I leave, if I want to go to the game, I leave my house like 10 o'clock, get there at 11. It's awesome. I love it right now. I'm born and raised in this area. My brother's born and raised in this area. Is how I became a fan. But I'll be honest with you guys. I do want to educate the Virginia fans on this. Being in Maryland, we're kind of in a hotbed. We're kind of in like a controversial territory, right? Like I walk into Giant, I'll see Baltimore Ravens balloons inside the Giant. I'll see Pittsburgh Steelers stuff inside the Giant as well. We Maryland fans want to be DC fans. We want to root for the Washington football team, right? But right now, the stadium is kind of like our one hanging jewel that we have, right? Yep. Ashburn headquarters is down in Virginia. Richmond's about a 2-hour drive for us, maybe 2.5-hour drive for us. Most of like the charity events are down in Virginia as well. So if we truly are the DMV, I would love to keep I want to have the stadium in National Harbor area, right? In that little like center, that's National Harbor is in the center of everything, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of traffic and congestion there, but it's a great area. MGM Grand, beautiful. The Washington Wheels down there, great. Casa Mexicana, it's a great restaurant down there. It's awesome. So, I think the fear that I have is if they move it that far out, us three, diehards, we'll stick with the team. But as the team kind of goes down 10, 20, 30 years from now, and Washington's not winning, why would someone feel a sense of attachment there, right? Like right now, the Ravens have Lamar Jackson. He's electric. It's fun to watch, right? But, we're losing on the field. We have Taylor Heineke as quarterback. So if you want to keep our fan base, to keep the DMV, aim for a stadium in D.C. or try to aim for something, in the middle at least, in the metropolitan area at least, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I think that
Thanks, Mike.
I think us Maryland fans would because George showed up, Hall showed up this year. We went to the stadium. I think Maryland fans have lost that ability to have a voice into the matter because everyone comes from Virginia or they travel far to come there. I don't think Maryland has really proven anything. Obviously, I'll make that trip, but I will say I think that Prince William County tidbit, I think that was a distraction. They don't want you to know where they're actually thinking about going to put that there. They want to keep you in this quiet, in the shadows. They don't want you to know what's going on there. But I would understand if they went down that path, because they like Richmond. Russell Wilson is from Richmond. And the further south they go is better for their traveling fans, the ones that actually do show up. So that would make a lot of sense. I would probably make the trip, without a doubt, obviously.
I would.
But I understand why they would, and I don't hate it. I would love it for it to be at the National Harbor, but I also would love it for it to be in Tyson's Corner. I think that is
a good area too. Not too far away.
Accessible for DC residents, Virginia people easily to get there. You have the Maryland people just going right over the Key Bridge to be able to get there as well. So I think those are great avenues that they can go down. It would hurt just a little bit that Washington would be leaving, but it would make so much sense as to why they would. I mean, none of these states have really gone out of their way to say, we want you, until the recent governor has really made a point and sticking point to that. And I think that you should honor that, because that person is actually working their butt off to come get you. There's no reason to hang your hat with Larry Hogan, who has done everything possible to make you look bad media and politically. So
I'm really surprised Larry Hogan didn't. I'm sorry to cut you off. No, I'm really surprised Larry Hogan didn't jump on it, right? So Maryland's motto is open for business. If you're driving around DC, Maryland actually says that on our state sign. Yeah. So and Larry Hogan's all about taxes and increasing revenues. I'm really surprised he didn't want to get into it. Like, I know he started off earlier on in the whole conversation, but I guess maybe Dan Snyder wanted to fit the bill on Maryland, and maybe that's what the whole issue. I don't know. I haven't dived too much into it.
Yeah, it looks like Hogan was running for that presidential bid, and he was kind of trying to get brownie points with the local media around here, is what it seemed like to me. But I wouldn't mind if it's in Virginia, dude. I think Virginia is probably the best bet for everybody. I think those residents would be more inclined to say, yes, we'll pay those taxes to get that built here, without a doubt. George, I can't thank you enough for joining us, sir, from Full Press Coverage. The ultra-talented, the ultra-positive as well on Twitter, being able to calm everybody down. You don't piss anybody off like me or Hall. But, you're the best of the best, George. You're the man. I can't thank you enough for joining us, sir.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Catch you guys later, all right?
All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we will see you guys on Monday. We'll see you then. Stay safe. Washington football. Woo!
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw,
make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched the BurgundyZone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!